Welcome to the last and third installment of 4.5 graphs of sine and cosine. This time we are going to be talking about our vertical shifts. So the last two videos we talked about horizontal shifts of sine and cosine, so this time we're going to talk about a vertical shift. Our central question is the same: how do you graph a variation of sine and cosine, since a vertical shift is still a variation of that. So vertical shifts. Your vertical shift is going to add d to the end of each. So not in your parentheses, not multiplied or divided, it's just a constant d that's going to shift your graph up and down. So the maximum value of y is your d plus your amplitude, or d, and then your minimum is d minus your amplitude. So let's look at, we're only going to do one example, and this one will be a cosine graph. So let's look at this. We have a is 2, b is, so b is, 1, since you just have one x, c is 0, since you don't have one, and d is 1. So your amplitude is the absolute value of a, so 2. Your period is 2 pi over b, so 2 pi over 1 is just 2 pi. Your phase shift is 0, since you don't have a c value. And your vertical shift is going to be up 1, since it's a positive d. So this means our max is going to be 1 plus 2, so our max is 3, and the min is going to be 1 minus 2, so negative 1 is your minimum value. So now we get to plug in points. So we have to find what we're adding. So period divided by 4. So 2 pi divided by 4 will just give you pi over 2. So x1 for this one is going to be 0. Since my phase shift is 0, x1 is 0. x2 is 0 plus pi over 2, so it's just going to be pi over 2. x3, pi over 2 plus pi over 2 is 2 pi over 2, which is 2 pi. x4 is, I'm going to write it as 2 pi over 2, so I have a common denominator. So this means x1 is 0, x2 is pi over 2, x3 is pi, x4 is 3 pi over 2, and x5 is 2 pi. So now we're going to go to our table and plug these in. I'm going to have you do all of them on your own this time. Remember to add your 1 at the end. So you have 5 points you want to plug in: 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and then lastly 2 pi. So you want to pause the video and work on these 5 on your own, and then come back and check your answers. So when you plug in 0, you should get 3, so you have 0, 3. Pi over 2, you should get 1, so 2 pi over 1. When you have pi over 2, you should get pi over 2, 1. Pi, you should get negative 1, so you have pi, negative 1. 3 pi over 2, you should get 1, so you have 3 pi over 2, 1. And lastly, 2 pi is 3, so 2 pi, 3. So next part is you want to plot all your points and then connect your lines and see what happened to your graph. So if we were to connect all 5 of those points, this is what our graph would be. So it is your standard graph, but you are shift up and down. So it's your standard cosine graph, but you are shift up or down. So it's the graph of 2 cosine x and then moved up 1. So to summarize each piece, your amplitude A is what changes the height of your graph. Your period, or B, makes it narrower or wider, so think of an accordion. So if B is greater than 0, makes it narrower or scrunched up, and if B is less than 0, makes it wider. Phase shift, or C, moves it left or right, and then D moves it up or down. So the next piece we're going to look at is you are going to be given a graph and you want to make your equation off of it. So if we look at this graph, you want to think, is it sine or cosine? Since this graph does in fact start at 0, we're going to say it's a sine graph. So you have sine something. So my max is at 3 and my min is -3. So you have to have 3 times 1. So since that makes it higher, you're going to have 3 sine, and then it's going to be bx. So you know you have sine. So now we just have to find your b. So your period, if I'm going from here to here, and that's a whole period. So your period is pi over 2. So that should be 2 pi over b. I jumped ahead of myself. Your period is pi. So from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, that's pi. So your period is pi. So you want to have 2 pi over b equal to pi. So your equation is 3 sine 2x. So in this case, I'm not going vertically or horizontally, so you want to think it starts at 0, so it's sine. My max is 3, so it's going to be 3 sine, and then my period is pi, and I know you find your period by doing 2 pi over b, so you solve your equation for b. So make sure you complete the questions below and your homework. Next class we're going to be talking about graphs of other trig functions. This is a lot of information. It can be very confusing and get all jumbled together, so if you have any questions, please, please, please contact me.